Welcome, One Piece fans! In this chapter, we journey back in time as Admiral Kizaru pays a visit to Egghead Island for some business. Despite his aversion to the cold, Kizaru remarks on the island's stark contrast to Punk Hazard. Dr. Vegapunk assures him that this new base of operations holds the key to the future, with his mind brimming with innovative ideas. However, Kizaru suspects that the Doctor is oblivious to the world government's hidden surveillance. The Admiral scolds Dr. Vegapunk for not thoroughly checking every corner upon moving in. The world government is displeased to discover secret agreements with pirates observed by a snail overhead. Dr. Vegapunk, lacking a defense, is unhappy with his friend's behavior, saying, "I hate it when you act like this." However, the Admiral states that he is only doing his job. Several Marines, including a younger ex-Drake, are also present on Egghead Island. Back in the lab, Saturn calls Dr. Vegapunk and expresses dissatisfaction, sternly stating, "It doesn't matter if he's an ideal candidate. He's a pirate with 296 million on his head. Whether it was due to ignorance or the fact that you didn't care, he cannot be our clone program's face. It would damage the government's reputation as he is a criminal." Due to this, the Gorosei introduced 3 additional stipulations for their deal to be accepted. Firstly, Kuma would become one of the 7 warlords of the sea. This decision was influenced by the recent loss of a warlord due to the actions of a pirate rookie named Ace, causing significant trouble in the pirate world. Someone as formidable as Kuma would serve as an excellent replacement. The second condition demanded that Kuma be transformed into a human weapon for the Marines. When Kuma questioned if this meant modifying his body, Saint Saturn confirmed. While Kuma was already deemed worthy of becoming a warlord, enhancements would elevate him into an even greater symbol of fear for pirates everywhere. Kizaru expressed the Navy's eagerness to have Kuma on their side, prompting an angry Dr. Vegapunk to shout, "Shut up!" Saint Saturn pointed out that Kuma was not like other pirates, highlighting his history with the Revolutionary Army. To ensure Kuma's powers were never used against them, the final condition emerged. Kuma must relinquish his free will and sense of individuality. The Gorosei's face grew dark as this requirement set a somber tone for the deal. The notion was so absurd that Dr. Vegapunk raised his voice, vehemently opposing one of the world's true rulers, asserting that such an act would be no different from killing the man. He firmly believed that stripping all humanity from a cyborg resulted in nothing but a soulless robot. Refusing to be part of such an act, he insisted he wouldn't murder someone. The devil, Saint Saturn reminded Vegapunk of his position as a military scientist, emphasizing his lack of right to talk back. Without remorse, Saint Saturn made it clear that these conditions were non-negotiable if Kuma wanted to save his daughter. Saturn viewed this as a small price to pay considering the cost and difficulty of the procedure. He felt no obligation to help Bonney. Dr. Vegapunk persisted, condemning the act as murder, claiming it was morally wrong to modify a human in such a way. Despite his continuous refusal, Kuma interrupted him, asking the doctor to proceed. Shaking with his hand over his face, Kuma, who had harbored worries for so long, believed saving Bonney might not be possible. Dr. Vegapunk couldn't believe his eyes. Kuma was shedding tears. Kuma's tears were tears of joy. He wasn't concerned about his fate, grateful and willing to accept any consequence, if it meant Bonney would be cured. As his emotions overflowed, tears welled up in Vegapunk's eyes. Borsellino lowered his hat slightly, and Saturn maintained his stoic demeanor, reflected in his transponder snail. This confirms that Kuma is the best dad in One Piece. Elsewhere, Bonney was joyfully running around the lab, playing with Sentomaru. Saint Saturn inquired about the duration of Dr. Vegapunk's work on Kuma's modifications and curing his daughter. For Bonney, the cure for sapphire scales would take around 6 months, with an additional year before she could be exposed to natural light. In total, it would be a 1.5 years before she fully recovered. Meanwhile, Kuma's modifications would take at least 2 years. Relieved that Bonney would be better by the time she turned 10, Kuma expressed his commitment to stay. However, Saint Saturn, seeking more insurance, insisted that the world government must take Bonney into custody after her treatment. She would only be released once Kuma's personality was entirely erased. Dr. Vegapunk objected vehemently, realizing that Kuma wouldn't be able to see Bonney after her cure. The World Elder saw no issue, and Kuma's modifications were set to begin immediately. Contact between them would be forbidden to prevent any attempts to escape. In case of defiance, Saint Saturn promised that Bonney would spend the rest of her life as a slave. This was undoubtedly the worst scenario Kuma could imagine for someone he cared about. Swearing to the Gorosei that he would never attempt to see her, Kuma had one request. He didn't want Bonney to know the truth, neither about her illness, nor the fact that she was being kept hostage. He couldn't bear the thought of her waking up in some grim government facility. Instead, he asked that they take her back to her home in Sorbet Kingdom, keeping her in the church where she grew up. If they could agree to this condition, he pledged never to search for her and would unquestionably obey. Saint Saturn paused, then agreed, stating that the location didn't matter if the world government oversaw everything. Saint Saturn anticipated that the next 2 years would be interesting. Returning to his daughter after the intense yet promising meeting, Kuma informed Bonney that they would be staying on Egghead Island for the next 6 months. Excited about her father's extended presence, Bonney was content, even though Kuma's excuse was that he might have come down with something, prompting a need for tests. Simply being with her father made Bonney happy, and she introduced Sentomaru to Kuma as this weirdo, which Sentomaru found rude. Bonney quickly noticed the abundance of windowless rooms in the lab, providing her with more freedom to move around than ever before. Vegapunk confirmed this, but cautioned her about the numerous dangerous gadgets scattered throughout the place. With those warnings in mind, Dr. Vegapunk got to work, now able to create the weapon of his dreams. Wait, did he not just express a refusal to take a life?
Bruh.
As Vegapunk fervently wrote, he struggled to slow down his brainwaves, expressing a desire for someone who could transcribe his thoughts, eat, and use the bathroom on his behalf so he could continue without interruption. Growing annoyed by the shortage of hands to assist him, Vegapunk was struck by yet another revolutionary breakthrough. Flames erupted from the sheer passion and friction of his swift penmanship. Dr. Vegapunk acknowledged the extensive work ahead of him, wishing for 5 more versions of himself. These desires sparked the creation of the Vegapunk satellites. Kuma successfully underwent his modifications, and Bonney received her treatment. The close bond between Bonney and Sentomaru is evident as they are seen playing together, explaining Sentomaru's steadfast defense of Bonney, even when he was injured on Egghead Island. To express her affection, Bonney drew an adorable picture of her father. Meanwhile, Dr. Vegapunk initiated work on green blood for his satellites utilizing his devil fruit. Kuma and Bonney happily spent as much time together as possible. When cargo ships arrived with supplies, Kuma took on the heavy lifting, allowing everyone else to relax. In the next scene, Bonney's eyes glow due to the abundance of food. Sentomaru, Kuma, Bonney, and Kizaru all relish a massive pizza together, radiating happiness. After the feast, Kuma and Bonney initiate the Nika dance, involving everyone in the lab, including the Marine Admiral who joins in the drums of liberation. As those delightful 6 months unfold, they eventually come to an end. Dr. Vegapunk confirms the success of the procedures, assuring that after a year of rehabilitation, Bonney would be completely cured. Kuma expresses deep gratitude, and Bonney wonders if she could visit Egghead Island once she's fully recovered. Vegapunk happily affirms her wish. Soon after, the father and daughter returned to Sorbet Kingdom. The community was excited to see them again after so long. Proudly, Bonney told everyone that she would be completely better in a year, finally able to go outside. The news brought immense joy to all the old folks who had been eagerly awaiting it. Granny Queen Connie of the kingdom's royal family entered the church, saying, "Does this mean I'll be taking care of you again, Bonney?" She assured Kuma that they would happily take care of the girl, emphasizing that he could count on them. The new warlord thanked them for their kindness, but pointed out that, being a pirate, sticking around would not be beneficial for the kingdom. He lifted Bonney, expressing that he didn't expect to be back for at least a year. While Bonney was initially shocked by the extended absence, Kuma promised to write her numerous letters. Bonney accepted this, mainly because by the time they saw each other again, they could travel together as they always planned. The thought brightened her smile and added to her anticipation. Kuma smiled back, genuinely expressing his love for the idea of traveling with her. However, at that moment, 3 Cypherpole agents disguised as medical professionals entered the church. They instructed Kuma to leave the rest to them. The woman leading them is named Alpha, a Cypherpole 8 agent. She's probably Khalifa's sister from Cypherpole 0. Anyways, she claimed to be a nurse tasked with taking care of Bonney during her recovery. She assured Kuma that she would monitor the child's temperature daily, ensure she took her medicine, and watch for any changes. Alpha introduced herself to Bonney, but even the child could sense that something was off. To ensure Bonney's safety, no suspicious individuals would be allowed near her during this time. Visitors had to bring proper identification, and hefty accommodations were being built outside the church. Alpha emphasized the fragility of a child's life by crushing something in front of Kuma. Understanding the situation, Kuma knew he would not be returning. He placed a hand on Bonney's head, expressing his gratitude with a smile. Kuma told her that he was really glad she was born, a sentiment that embarrassed Bonney a bit, but also made her happy to hear. They all bid him farewell with cheerful spirits. Meanwhile, pirates worldwide were left utterly surprised. The revelation that Bartholomew Kuma, the infamous Tyrant King, had transformed into a completely obedient member of the 7 warlords came as an unexpected twist. Sugar approached Doflamingo with the paper, sharing the news of the new warlord. Intrigued, Doflamingo saw the potential of another villain joining their ranks. Seeking Crocodile's opinion, Robin inquired about his thoughts. But the warlord remained indifferent. His primary concern was whether she had taken care of the people who witnessed their rainmaking ship. Mihawk remained solemn as he read the paper. Alvida commented on how the guy looked as massive as Whitebeard. Turning to Kobe, she asked who he believed to be stronger between her and Kuma. Sheepishly, the kid claimed Alvida to be the clear answer. Whitebeard, Marco, Jinbei, and Blackbeard gathered to discuss the news. Ace remarked to Jinbei about the convenience of finally finding a replacement. However, given that Ace was the reason for the vacancy in the first place, Jinbei didn't expect him to make such a comment. As the fishman read the details, he noted that Kuma was formerly a king. Comparing him to the current king of Dressrosa, Jinbei saw a clear shift in the pirate world. Boa Hancock, like Crocodile, showed no interest at all. She refused to follow any man's orders. Gloriosa insisted that the princess keep track of such vital information. Meanwhile, Gecko Moria laughed as Perona and her hollows floated above. Kuma being a poor man didn't sound very intimidating to the lover of monsters. But considering how quickly he became a warlord, Perona was sure he must be strong. Dragon frowned at the news, knowing Kuma very well. Sabo and Koala couldn't believe it. The warlords answered directly to the world government. There was no way Kuma would willingly join them. As Kuma's ship flees from a large explosion, he writes a letter to his daughter. He mentions that he is still at sea, facing increasing challenges due to his reputation. Despite the difficulties, he assured Bonney that he was doing fine and was actively seeking interesting places for her to visit when she turned 10. Kuma expressed hope for the safe delivery of his letter to his homeland and prayed for the well-being of everyone back home. As he received new commands from the world government, Kuma found himself in the East Blue, about to dock in Fusha Village, the hometown of Luffy, who is seen joyfully running away from a tiger, concluding the chapter. Was Kuma's presence in Fusha Village driven by prior knowledge of the Nika Nika fruit, or was it simply a stroke of luck? Feel free to share your thoughts below. Your support means a lot. These videos are a product of my spare time and considerable effort. If you enjoyed this content, kindly like, share, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.